This is the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast, and we're here to build autonomous athletes and put phenomenal programming into every garage, basement, and spare bedroom out there. I'm Jerred Moon, and I'm with Joe Courtney. We are strength and conditioning coaches who have turned over 20,000 people into garage gym athletes over the last decade. And we're here to reduce the information overload that exists in the health and fitness industry today. We're going to do that by covering relevant science and give actionable takeaways, not only from the data, but from our years of experience. So let's dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How's training?
Pretty good. Had a pretty solid week. Pretty run down today. Man, I wasn't expecting this, but Monday I did the kettlebell swing test, and I haven't done kettlebells in a while, like swings, at least not that many. And I'm still sore from it. Like, it kind of wrecked me. And I even looked into my history, and I did significantly less than what I've done like in the past years. It's like 30 less than my top score ever. But yeah, I'm like, my glutes were really sore for like 2 days after. My biceps are even a little sore. But it's like a good sore. So,
explain the kettlebell swing test for anybody who doesn't know what that is.
Yeah, so something, I don't know if you got it from somewhere else or if you just programmed it on your own. It is 3 minutes of max kettlebell swings, 1 minute of rest, and then 5 minutes of max kettlebell swings. So total 9 minutes of max kettlebell swings with just a 1 minute break in there.
Yeah, brutal. Sounds like something I just came up with, to be honest. Yeah. That's you throw in something you haven't done in a while, and it gets brutal. Before we jump in further, I forgot to update everybody. So today we're finishing our conversation. We kind of talked about fitness trends, what we've seen over the past, and now we're kind of talking more about the future today, or that's what we're going to be talking about, kind of our kids, fitness, garage gyms, our thoughts on kind of that, different stages of parenting here between Joe and I as well. I'd love to get Joe's thoughts. It's not something we've discussed a ton behind the scenes. And then we're going to get into a little bit of what we think AI, tech, wearables, all that kind of stuff, where that's headed, here in the next couple of years or so. I think we briefly touched on some of those things in previous podcasts, but I want to dive into it deeper. But before we do that, I do have one update. Training wise, I got a new piece of equipment, and I mentioned I wanted to get it, and I got it. And just so everybody knows, we don't do like paid shout outs or like sponsored posts or anything like that. So if I'm mentioning a piece of equipment, it's really just because I'm utilizing the equipment and felt like talking about it. Like Garmin gets so much free exposure here. Yeah. But I purchased the Freak Athlete, whatever it's called, the 8-in-1 machine. It's like a Nordic, I don't know what they actually call it, Nordic, whatever. It does all sorts of crap. It can do Nordic hamstring curls. It can do GHD sit-ups, 90-degree back extensions, decline sit-ups. It's got a spot for like Bulgarian split squats, hip thrusts. Like it just does a lot of things. I call it like the transformer. That's how I've been like explaining it to other people. So anyway, and if you're like me in like the same demographic, if you will, garage gym athlete, whatever, I get slammed by their ads constantly on Instagram. I don't know if that's just me, but
just listening to this, you're going to see an ad now, probably.
Yeah, you'll see, because they advertise quite heavily. But I want to get my thoughts on it. I'm only about a week into it, so all I can really talk about is like, hey, here's my plan. Here's how I plan to use it, and then also my initial thoughts on the piece of equipment. Initial thoughts are, it's awesome, and here's why. It's because it can do all those different things that it said. And it's incredibly sturdy and seems to be very well built. Like, we'll see if it stands the test of time. But yeah, I thought it was going to be like rickety. I was like, I thought I was going to regret my purchase. In all honesty, I thought I was going to because I really want to be able to do GHD sit-ups. Like, I almost bought a GHD, like a proper GHD from Rogue. And the only thing that stopped me was this machine. I was like, well, it says more than just a GHD, because I have a reverse hyper. And it's like, it's a love-hate relationship with that reverse hyper because it does one thing and takes up a ton of space. And that's how I was like, I really want a GHD sit up, like a GHD primarily for GHD sit ups. And I was like, should I buy this thing? So anyway, I didn't buy the one from Rogue. I bought this thing from Freak Athlete. And it does have like places where you could put the plates that like to make it, sturdy, I guess. So I've done that every time, but it is very, very sturdy and does all the things that it says it does pretty well, except for reverse hyper. It doesn't do a reverse hyper. And I knew that before I bought it. A big, and people don't understand, a big part of a reverse hyper is your legs actually swinging underneath the apparatus. Like, it's not just like the fact that you can lift your legs back. Like, it's because Louis Simmons, if you watch videos, he's the one who invented it. Louis Simmons, very famous in the powerlifting world, came up with the conjugate method, training method for powerlifters and everything. But anyway, he talks about the spinal stretch you get underneath, like by your legs coming underneath. And you don't get that at all with this GHD. They like, it'd be like a partial, you're supposed to use a band and then it's partial range of motion. Like, it's just, I think that they should eliminate that. They shouldn't even say that it does that thing. Because it's just a huge whiff on the reverse hyper thing. But other than that, it does all the other things quite well. Do you have any questions about the machine?
I guess, have you only used it with GHD, or you tried anything else?
No. Yeah. So I've tried almost everything it does because I had two people who own one of these, two friends, if you will. Marco's one of them. We talked about that. Marco has it. And then I have another buddy who just owns it. And I talked to Marco about it. Marco's like, I use this thing damn near every day for something. And then I talked to my other friend and he's like, I don't know. You have to like adjust it all, like to get it to the right spot. You got to move a bunch of knobs. He's like, I never use it now. He's like, it just sits like in the corner of my gym. And I was like, kind of like taking into both accounts. I'm like, well, I probably more like Marco than this. Like, I'll use something if I buy it. Right. And so I thought it was gonna be hard, but I spent the 5 to 10 minutes after I built it to make sure I knew how to get it into all these positions. Because if I had to like rewatch a video every time to like adjust it to GHD and then adjust it to, Nordic hamstring curls and all that stuff, I'd be like, I'm not using this thing. But I don't. Like I said, I spent the 5 to 10 minutes after the fact, watched their video that they had on like the different adjustments, and now it's just kind of ingrained into my head how to use it. So it's pretty easy to use. So definitely more on the Marco train with like utilizing a lot. But what I use it for, my like routine right now is I'm running again. I mentioned that, and I'll talk about why I'm running again. But after I run, I hate just running. I really do. Like I hate just like single modality. And so I want to do something after. And so I've been either doing like a short circuit after my runs. I'm talking like a quick 10-minute something. Or now what I'm doing is I'm using this machine and I'm doing GHD sit-ups, 90-degree back extensions, and Nordic hamstring curls after every single run. So three times a week, doing those things just to utilize the whole body a little bit more, work on my posterior chain, abdominal strength, all that kind of stuff. The main reasons I wanted it. So anyway, that's how I'm using it. I'm not utilizing it in my programming necessarily, like the Garage Gym Athlete programming that I'm following, but I'm utilizing it on top of the runs.
It's definitely a nice to have accessory thing, because like you can even do Bulgarian split squats on a lot of stuff, but to have your foot on something that pivots and rotates, it's just kind of a nice to have, because you don't have to get exactly in the right spot.
Yeah. It's pretty legit. And so I mentioned why am I running again? So I'm getting a dog, and I know everybody wanted to. I have
like
a
a
dog.
real size dog.
Yeah. So if people don't know, I have a dog. My wife has a dog. Whatever.
Does not
It's
like me
Chihuahua.
at all.
It's a Chihuahua. Okay. It's a long-haired Chihuahua. It's 8 pounds. It hates everyone except for my family. And
just like the last one.
Yeah, just like the previous one. So anyway, I don't consider myself a Chihuahua dog guy. I've always wanted a big dog. So we are getting a big dog in about a week. We are getting a German short-haired pointer. And if you do any research on these, I started down the road of like, I want a dog I can run with. And that's how like this
Ooh.
whole thing started. I was like, I want a dog I can run with. And so like I want an athletic dog that can go on long runs with me. And a lot of dogs popped up. I mean, it's not like only one dog can do this, but like the Belgian Malinois, which is like what they use for like police work and stuff, that popped up. They're insanely athletic, but they also can be a
Weimaraner.
bit aggressive. And so we ran into all these other, but we ended up talking to some breeders and stuff. And the German short-haired pointer seemed to be like the dog for us, like the perfect family dog, slightly psychotic, or could be, potentially, depends on the dog you get. Very insanely athletic, and can easily run with me. And to be honest, they're saying like I could probably run 3 to 5 miles with it, and it would be like, what's next? Because that was not enough. So anyway, really looking forward to it. So that's going to be like one of my main responsibilities, running this dog every damn day. So I'm like, I've got a while. You can't run the dog when they're young, but I'm like, might as well keep up my run fitness if I'm going to be running this dog every day. So I'm not training for a race. I'm not training for anything. I'm just doing the runs that I want to do, and doing that a couple
Trying to
times a
keep your
week.
dog sane.
Yeah, that's it. That's the main reason behind it.
That's awesome. I got to write down the breed as well, because I know when we get back to the States, we're going to be looking for one. And I'd like to have one that we take on hikes, and just like my boy, my son, he's only 2, but he's so much energy. And so once he gets a little bit bigger and can actually walk a dog, I think he'll need to have some sort of exercises as well. So maybe he'll tire himself out. But I do like these times of the size, and yeah, especially short-haired dogs.
Yeah, because they're not
That's
like
great.
giant, and then they're really athletic, and apparently they're really smart too. Because I actually want to invest some time into like training the dog. Like,
Yeah,
it's like something I've always wanted. Like this always happened when I was growing up. Like we'd start talking about getting a dog. I'm talking about my family, like when I lived with my family, middle school or whatever. And like we'd have these conversations about like what kind of dog we're gonna get and all these things. My dad would be like, let's get a German Shepherd and like whatever. And my mom would kind of be a part of the conversations. And then she would just come home the next day with like some dog she found at the pound. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like these dogs need to be rescued too, but it was never like, it was always this like older dog that you couldn't really do much with. You couldn't train. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. It was just never the dog that I truly wanted, and that's no shade on my parents at all. Like at all. My mom just has like a super big heart. And so that was always the kind of dogs I had growing up. I never had a dog like you got from a puppy and you trained, and like I've never really had that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. The whole thing could backfire. We'll see. You ever trained a dog before, Joe?
Yeah, a little bit. We've only had one dog, Liz and I, and we got him when he was 1.5 years, so not a puppy, but still pretty young. And we definitely taught him a few things, but a lot of behaviors you just kind of can't, like, because it was also a rescue, so like behaviors toward other dogs or other people, like there's just some things you just can't fix or get out of. So when we get another one, we'll definitely get one as a puppy, so that we can actually have the social side, but like as in like tricks and like not doing things, he actually responded really well to that.
Awesome. Well, I know everybody came here to learn about dog training and the freak athlete thing. Anyway, it's a good piece of equipment. I'll update everybody more on like how things are going with that. But I do, and this will be my last thing on that before we can move on, but the movements you can do on the freak athlete machine are things that are like neglected if you don't have a way to do them. So I'm not saying you need to do the freak athlete thing. Like I think you may have seen that like door jam thing I bought, like where I could do Nordic curls. And like
Maybe
it slides underneath the door, and then you can close the door, and if you have a pad, you can kind of do Nordic hamstring curls. So I've been looking for ways to kind of put these things in my program, but haven't really found a easy way to do it. And so this solved a lot of problems. So yeah, looking to build up from here and see how training these things 3 times a week after runs goes for a while.
And I'll get to try it out in September.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hop into training. What's our plan for our kids, fitness, and training garages and in the house and all those kind of things. It's interesting. So I have 3 kids, just to update everybody. I have a 12-year-old, an about to be 10-year-old, like real close, and then a 6-year-old. So the oldest and middle are boys, and the youngest is a girl. And Joe, what do you
I have a
have?
2-year-old,
2-year-old.
2-year-old son.
Yep. So he has one boy, 2 years old. So we are kind of at different stages here, but I think it'd be, good to cover this. But a good book I'm reading right now, it's called The Anxious Generation, I believe, from the same author of The Coddling of the American Mind. The author's name is escaping me at the moment, but I'm not all the way through the book, but it does talk about the need for unsupervised, like free time, playtime, roaming outside, those kind of things, and how there are all these mental health issues with kids related to smartphones. And I don't like for it to be blamed on the phone. It's more like unsupervised internet time and social media, unrestricted social media use, because there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with like text messaging a friend or calling a friend, but like searching whatever the hell you want to on the internet at certain ages and being on social media at inappropriate ages can cause problems. And I think just reading through that book has really made me think of like what I'm doing. But I want to hear from you, Joe. Like I said before we started talking about it, Joe, it's not something Joe and I have discussed a lot, but I'd love to hear what your strategy is for getting your son into fitness, because I think we could both agree that's important for us. Like we want our kids to be fit as they get older. Like we don't necessarily need them to be professional athletes or anything, but like we want fitness to be a part of their life just because we know how important it is. But then like when that's your job and that's your life, it can come from the standpoint of like, kids can be rebellious and not want to do anything that you want to do. So I mean, what's your strategy? I mean, I know it's pretty early for you, but I'm sure you've had thoughts on these kind of things. Like what you're thinking right now.
I mean, I'm hoping he goes D1 at least.
At a minimum. Get
At a
that college
minimum.
paid for, boy. Give me
Yeah,
some of that
yeah.
NIL money.
Yes, yeah, something like that. Give me something. Live vicariously through you. Yeah, like getting him out and playing is definitely been huge. At 2, like we've always had sort of a plan of how we wanted to go about things like for a while now, and we kind of have to wait. So we've always wanted to get him into gymnastics first, because I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to some other people that have gotten their kids into gymnastics early, and just how much it helps to teach just like overall coordination and being a body
Yeah.
aware. And I mean, just him playing out and being rough and stuff, I've noticed has paid dividends. He was running downhill just last week and he tripped. And as he was tripping, his hands came out in front of him, but he also like tucked and rolled at the same time. So instead of smashing his face, he actually like had some body control to like twist and move, and he didn't hit his face. And he's just scared of it, didn't actually hurt him. So like stuff like that, just playing and getting out and and doing things actively. There's a tumbling thing here that we can get him into for toddlers, but probably when we get to the States for sure. Gymnastics, and then the first sport that he was ever that I was always going to get him to would be soccer.
Yeah.
Because so you have overall coordination with gymnastics, but you're not doing anything crazy. You're mostly just tumbling and balancing. Soccer, you're actually running and teaching your feet how to move and run and change directions and have like aerobic fitness. But like kids can barely can you use their feet at the same time. They're still going to be falling and tripping all over the place. So getting feet coordination before we start doing anything with the hands has always been sort of my thought. And then like after soccer, depending on how much he's into it, we'll go from there. I'll probably like somewhat of lacrosse. Hopefully I can be around my brother and bring my sticks out, just like see and do. Even now we have 2 soccer balls, and I just go in the backyard and I kick it against the wall, and he wants me to kick it against the wall. He just watches me, and then he started to come out and kick it. He mostly just picks it up and runs after me, like throwing the ball. But he still started to kick it more and more and more. So learning by seeing, I realized that I may have to start playing more just sports in front, go into a real field and doing things
Yeah.
versus pushing him into it. I don't know how you sort of, because like yours have always been really big into sports. And you guys, I know you always talked about playing soccer with your boys in the backyard, but like there's that, and then there's the level to what Graham is at now. So like, how do they kind of get started?
Yeah, I mean, Graham started really early, and this is nature versus nurture conversation, but I just think that it's interesting. I'll speak specifically to Graham for a minute. So Graham, yeah, he's he's like on a high level soccer team now. He's really good at soccer. Granted, he's only about to be 10 years old, but I mean, he does have a lot of skill. And I think a lot of it has to do with like he had some, just he was born with like the athletic genes. Like that's just like in him, like that part he was born with. But it's interesting. Yeah, we always played in the backyard. But one thing that I think helped a lot, and this is something outside of my control, we put him on a soccer team that was really good. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast before, but he was on this rec soccer team, and you would play basically 2 seasons. You'd play in the fall and you'd play in the spring. So every year there were 2 seasons, right? And as opposed to it being soccer season, like a typical sport would be, because it's just kids, whatever. So he'd play in the spring and he'd play in the fall, and then they'd have summer stuff as well. But he played with this same team from when he had just turned 4 years old, up until he was, I think, 7, or 8 before he went academy and now select. But anyway, he didn't lose a game. He did not lose one single game that entire time. Now, that speaks to the team and the coaching and everything. It was not just Graham, but we added it up one time. Graham had not lost a game, and it was like 123 games. He was like 123-0. And again, the only reason I counted that up is because I started to think more about like he has this confidence and then this desire and this will, but like it seemed to be fostered over time from the winning. And again, that's completely outside my control. I can't replicate that. I couldn't do that again. I couldn't find a team that worked for him. So he won that many times. And now he's lost plenty now, which is good because he's learned to lose. Like we started to get worried about that too. We were like, damn, what's going to happen once he loses? Like he's never lost before, like in years. He's like never lost since he started playing a sport. So anyway, we started to worry about that, but he ended up being fine with that and adapting. But again, I'm not sitting here. I wasn't like etching off wins like on my whiteboard. We added up after the fact just because we knew how many games there were each season, how many seasons he had played. But I just was like, this is ridiculous. Like, that's a lot of winning for him, and I think that gained a lot of confidence. So my only point being there is like, yeah, we've fostered a lot of those things. Always playing in the backyard with them, always being active with them. You talk about taking them up to a field. That's something that, I mean, to be honest, we still do. I'd take them up to like the stadium field at the high school here, and it typically would start with me doing some sort of short workout, running on the track, and I would just throw them some balls, and they could do whatever they wanted on the field because I'm like running a circle around them, watching them, And then it would end with just anything and everything. Like, hey, okay, let's play football 2 versus 1. Let's try and kick some field goals. Let's practice that just for fun. Like, let's kick some soccer balls. We would just do all these different kinds of things on the field. And we're still doing those things. Like I said, my kids are still young. They're not like older than yours for sure, but like not in high school or, all these other things. So I'm not trying to get them to get scholarships or do anything. I'm really just trying to foster that athleticism and love for fitness is like my main goal. And I talked about that in one of the podcasts, a solo podcast where I talk about training kids. Is like, that's all I want to do is foster this love of fitness and like pushing yourself and, sweating, being okay with those things. And I think you, to your point, you have to lead that charge is what I'm realizing. Is like, you can't tell your kids something. You can't, hey, yeah, fitness is important. Go do fitness. You have to show them. You have to show them like with your behavior and what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's one way we've been kind of lacking since we've been here is on the weekends we haven't been working out and getting in front of him to work out. We just we work out during the week, and then on the weekends we do our own thing. We might go on walks and be active that way, but we don't actually do workouts. But recently we've started to do that, and it'll be like I'll make up a 20-minute EMOM to go downstairs and do that, or we've gone on a couple of runs with the stroller. I'll push the stroller, and I'll have Liz run in front of the stroller so he can see her running. I'd like to do more on the sports side of things because I think that would also impact. It's a little harder, now I'm 36, joining the over 35 rec leagues, but they don't really have those in Spain. So once we get back to the States, I might join an older men's league and have him come and watch the games and just see that, so that maybe it would push him to want to do it. And that kind of makes me want to be better prepared, to be in better shape to actually still be able to go play those things, even at my age, so he can see that. And maybe that's something that he could, remember, think about way down the road when he's older.
Yeah. And yeah, my kids have grown up seeing working out in the gym, garage gym, doing stuff outside with me. And I've talked about it for years. It's like the great experiment, right? Like, see if it all works out. But it wasn't until this year that they were like begging me to work out with me, and I've been holding them back. Like, no, you can't. You're not ready. We're not doing that yet. Just do sports. And then this year is finally the year I started training them, and it's gone really well. And I think if this is something that we can continue, I think that's something we'll always have. Like, some dads hunt with their kids, some dads fish with their kids, some dads go see baseball games or football games with their kids. And granted, I've done some of those things, but none of those things are like my main thing, right? And so my kids will remember working out with me, I think, more than anything else. And I hope that's what they get out of it. And so overall, like, just to kind of like wrap that up, I think the strategy is just you have to lead from the front so hard, is my opinion of this. So if you are doing fitness like in the morning or the evenings or behind closed doors or whatever, just for yourself, that's fine. I'm not saying you have to work out or show your kids every single day, but just make it a part of your life somehow, like let them see something. That's been, and it should be pretty easy if you're a garage gym athlete working from home. It's like easy or working out from home. It's just easy to have them see it more often. And like I said, I'm still learning. There's still a lot to learn as we progress to them getting even more serious into sports and all these kind of things. But like I said, my goal is not for them to, unless they want to be. I don't care about what kind of athletes they turn into, but I just want them to love fitness, and that's all I'm working on right now.
So what made you change your mind on actually starting to train them? Because they're kind of both going to be middle school or in more competitive sports now, or what?
Yeah, I think I just realized that they could handle it. I keep them away from weightlifting. I talk about that all the time. Like, I don't let them lift weights. I can run them through pretty hard workouts that never involve them having to lift anything. We have done some like straight leg deadlifts with like 5 pound, 10 pound dumbbells before, but that's about as far as I've gone into weight bearing stuff. But yeah, I just think that one thing I've noticed with Graham being a soccer player and William being a football player is Graham is way more conditioned than William, even though they're 2 years apart. Like, if the workout for today was run 2 miles, Graham would be like, whatever, sounds easy. And William would be like, this sucks, because he's a football athlete. Like, he runs the short bursts and like all that kind of stuff. And so me seeing that, just realized like these kids can get conditioned. They can get conditioned. So I've increased William's conditioning quite a bit to bring his conditioning up. And then I've added a little bit more strength stuff to, like, they both had their pros and cons, right? Like, we're just talking aerobic conditioning, but if we're talking about strength, William's way stronger than Graham, not only because he's older, but like just given the sport, right? So there's pros and cons to all of them. But I realize that they can take more, but I still, like, I'm super like, I feel like I've got like an egg, like I'm just trying not to crack, like I'm running down the road with this thing and like it's jostling around, but I'm trying to keep it. Like, I don't want to push them too hard, but I don't want to, if they don't get pushed, it won't be worth it. It's like, there's like a fine line, but I don't want to be the dad who's like militant training their kids into where they hate it and all they remember is being forced to train. I don't want to be that guy. But at the same time, I don't want them to work out with me and I know they're not putting in enough hard work, and then they get to the field or whatever and they're like, working out's useless, it's pointless, like it hasn't helped me at all. You know what I'm saying? Because that could happen if you're working out 4 or 5 days a week but you're not really pushing it, and then you go to the field and you're like, I'm wasting my time. So I don't want them to have that realization either. So I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle of like, I need you to learn to push yourself. I'll be here to help guide you through that process, but I'm not going to push you too hard. I'm not going to let you lift too heavy. And I think what you mentioned gymnastics. I think that's some stuff like that is great. I think soccer's a phenomenal first sport. But as my kids get older and actually like start going through puberty and testosterone comes in, I'm really going to try to get them to go through bodybuilding cycles, like hypertrophy to some degree. But while, obviously concurrent training, but I think having a really strong, solid base of muscle helps with everything. I think every athlete I know who's done anything in the concurrent training space kind of started there, myself included. Like, I think it's just having that muscular strength base without having to go into the powerlifting world is just so good. And ultimately, that's what kids, like 16-year-old kids, want anyway, right? It's like bigger muscles and stuff. So it's not a hard thing to sell either. But like, I'll run them through how to do it properly and without hopefully getting any of like mental disorders that come with body dysmorphia and all these other kind of things that people struggle with.
Like muscle and body awareness on that anyway, and
yeah,
all the bone health associated with it and whatever, and just
cool. Well, you want to dive into AI tech wearables?
Yeah, I mean we've covered similar things in the past, but I don't know how there's much to. Yeah.
So I think we've talked a lot about wearables, and we've talked about Whoop and Apple Watch and Garmin and all these kind of things, but I think we're on the bubble of like this. Like, I think all this stuff is just like, it's not going to be where we're at in a few years. Like, AI is not good enough yet. Like, I think that it's so much more powerful than where we're at right now. You're talking about like Elon Musk with he inserted it in someone's brain. What's it called? Neuralink. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, so they did. It's called Neuralink. They actually, it looks like a hearing aid. It goes behind the guy's ear, and then it like implants directly into his brain, and he can control his computer with his brain. Like he's making the mouse like go move around the screen. He's just thinking about it, and the mouse is moving with his thought. Like, does it like we're not? This is not a science fiction movie I'm talking about.
That's
this
crazy.
is like legitimate stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think we're at the very start of that. And I'm not even getting into the health side of like nanobots that can like be inserted into your blood and go kill diseases and stuff. Those things are on the horizon too, but they might be further out. But I think people desire more like this, a more integrated approach. And I think it's coming. I think it's coming from AI. I think that it'll get more integrated. I think like blood testing is just going to get easier and easier. I think that might be an at-home thing sooner rather than later. Like a full blood panel might be able to just be done at home. And again,
which would make sense. I mean, they have those like glucose monitors. I mean, you wear one on your arm, and like there's a glucose monitor. There's not like any sort of complicated process. So you would think that you have enough drops of blood, and it would just spin it, and whatever the computer can just, they learn to detect, okay, you have this amount of this amount of this.
Yeah. Like, I think all of that's coming and it's getting faster. And I think, but I also feel like we're kind of on like, we're on the stupid slow side of that right now. And that's my real thoughts. Like, I think really cool stuff is coming. Technology goes so fast. That's why I can't predict, like, it goes so fast these days. I can't say it's a year away or 5 years or 10 years away. My thought is it's probably 5 to 10 years away of like fitness, wearable tech stuff being like truly ingrained into our bodies. Like, I don't know, like a contact lens that you wear that can take a picture of your food and like tell you all the macronutrients in it. And that might sound ridiculous, but I told you about the NutriSense app does that now. Like, I told you about that, right? It's
oh yeah, it takes a picture.
Yeah, you could take a picture of your food and it just tells you to the best of its ability what the macro breakdown of your food is, because it uses AI to recognize all the foods and like the amounts. And I'm like, that's incredible. Like, that's only a matter of time before we know exactly what's coming into our mouth. They know exactly what we're eating. And so integrating those kind of things more into our, like, without having like having to sit around and like do the phone stuff, this is where like if I zoom out and just look at humanity, I feel like we look really stupid. I'm just like, if you're just like an alien was watching you, he's like, okay, the creature's about to eat. It's like, oh wait, it's pulling out some device. It's
I
typing on the
think the
device.
phones are our overlords.
Yeah. And so like, and I think that step is just so stupid. I think the phone step's going to get removed at some point. Like all the technology and things that we want, but minus the phone. That's where I think we're going. Like, I think it's just going to be integrated somehow, either chips in the brain, glasses, contacts, something is going to happen to where we get that level. Like if you just look at a Apple Vision Pro, right? No one wants to look
Those
like
are
an
insane.
idiot with this like refrigerator attached to their head, right? Like, but it's really cool technology. And I'm sure lots of people love it. And I'm sure there are people listening who have it, but it's kind of ridiculous. We'll make fun of that in a few years because it's like the first cell phone that came out. You know, it's like it had like a briefcase battery
the
pack
big,
and like giant.
oh,
Like we make fun of that now, right? Like we'll make fun of the Apple Vision Pro that had a cord attached to the head with a battery pack and it looks like you're wearing like scuba diving goggles. Like no, that's stupid. Like we'll be better than that in a few years, and all these things will greatly increase. So I think that's where we're headed. But like I said, I think we're on the stupid side of this stuff now, where people think the future is like the mirror, like that you can attach on your wall and it walks you through a workout. Like, no, that's all stupid stuff. That's elementary stuff. That's not where we're on the stupid end of AI and tech right now. We're not on where it's going to be, which I think is going to be a really cool, but also slightly frightening place.
Yeah, I did a little diving on see if there's like AI coaches and stuff out there, and there's all kinds of different programs that will, some of them just randomly generate. Other ones claim to be either AI or smart, and like you mentioned, the mirror or using your camera, and they'll analyze it. And I think there's gonna be so many things like that to sift through that are just gonna be BS. I looked up a couple of them, and most of the reviews were just like, yeah, this is sort of just generic, it's BS, or like there was this camera feature that's supposed to like watch your body and see how you move and tell you like how you need to do better moving or generate the fitness program that's best for you, but it turns out to be somewhat generic. And so now I think, once you check a certain amount of boxes, it's going to spit out a program that it had before, and they'll call it AI. But as you said, as things get smarter, all that's going to hook up to your wearables, your Garmin's, your Apple Watches, and it's going to really like tell you, maybe even like I was thinking about this on my run yesterday. So Garmin has the suggested workouts.
Yeah.
I did the VO2 max workout, and usually there's like a 10-minute warm up, and then this one had 2-minute intervals, and it gives you a pace. And then there was a 1-minute like recovery interval, and it was a slower pace. And then, so 7 rounds of that, and then another 10-minute cool down. And I was thinking, like, as I was 3 or 4 rounds through, and I was like, yeah, it's getting a little harder to go through. I wonder if, one day, because it sets your pacing for you, but after 3-4 rounds, or maybe the first couple rounds, it gives you a higher power output. And then after 3-4 rounds, depending on what your power is, or depending on what your heart rate is, it may adjust what your pacing needs to be. So on the fly, it's told you how many intervals you're doing, but on the fly, it's going to adjust your pacing for you. Kind of like in strength and conditioning, if you're doing, or in strength training, if you have a coach doing like reps in reserve and they see your velocity going down, that coach is going to tell you, okay, maybe 1 or 2 reps and then you're done. Or even now we've read studies about velocity meters, and they will train until they hit a certain velocity. And once that velocity is hit, it doesn't matter if they can do more reps, they've hit their velocity and they're done. So like combining that with your wearable to running conditioning of like power output or pay or a heart rate or something like that is going to just tell you right on the fly of like, okay, now you're good. That was the intent. Rest until this time, and then go from there.
Yeah. Like I think, and that level of individualization that you're talking about that's kind of where I've always thought we were going. But if just think about like whether or not that's necessary is a separate conversation. It's like, well, that's like super like detailed. Is that even necessary when you could just do a workout? And it's like, yes and no, it's not necessary, but think about how efficient it is, because you could do less work. No, like I honestly feel like that's a lot of fitness sometimes is like, you could talk to any coach, and whether you're talking about the last few reps on a bicep curl, on a back squat, or, your last 1 to 2 intervals, like on a 400-meter sprint, like talk to any coach. It's when you get to that point where like you do feel like you're breaking down, you got to push, you have to really push through the pain. That's where the growth happens, right? Like that's where the results are actually seen. All that other stuff is like, it's the warm up. It's not actually the warm up, but it's like, as far as we're talking about like results and growth, like if you want to move forward, you have to get to these points. And I think that if tech could know whether or not you're legitimately there, like you're talking about velocity, like if that was just ingrained into your barbell or a suit that you put on or whatever, like shorts that you wear, like I don't, however it
Even
is,
your
and it's like,
watch. It's like,
yeah,
hey, I know I'm doing this exercise. My hand's going to be here. Tell me my velocity, because your hand's not moving when you're on the barbell, when you have a barbell, or like the watch will know you're going up and down, or it's going up like that.
yeah. And so like if it just knows like, hey, you're slowing down, and tells you you got headphones in your ear and it's like speed up or like whatever, like it's going to make your workout so much more efficient. Um, but then there's the darker side of that where my friend just told me about this. He was like, "Oh, you'd love it," and I was like, "Well, we'll see." But like, you put on some sort of suit. I don't even know what this place is called. Okay, but you put on like this suit, and then they like put all these like cables on you, and the suit like tightens and like does all this stuff while they're running you through exercises, and you can only work out for like 12 minutes, and it's a franchise, right? Again, we're on the stupid side of fitness. Like that's that. And I'm not even like trying to make fun of the suit and like all this other kind of stuff. Like, and this guy's getting a good workout. Like he legitimately is. But one thing that's always going to be true is like, you can't cheat your biology, right? We can pretend like we can, but you can't actually. Like if you only ever exercise for 12 minutes a day, I don't care how many machines or sensors you have on you, 12 minutes is not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. Like with how our lifestyles are, how sedentary they've become, with how hard it can be to battle diet, like 12 minutes of exercise, no matter the technology you're putting behind it, is not going to cut it. So that's, again, it's like the stupid side of things that I think we'll get over that hump. Like we'll get over that hump and like see that that's not how to make things more efficient. How to make things more efficient are things like you're talking about. Like let's measure your bar speed when you're doing this stuff and make that super easy to do. Or let's make blood work super easy to get and very low cost. And like let's have something ingrained into our actual biometrics when we are doing that run workout. So we don't have to listen for 4 hours of zone 2 podcast to find out if I'm actually in my specific zone 2. Like my watch will just know that because it's connected somehow and knows like it's either constantly measuring blood lactate or whatever. So anyway, I think that's the direction we're headed. I don't think it's, again, there's the stupid side of this where people are just trying to use the buzzword AI to sell more programs or whatever. Like we could do that at Garage Gym Athlete. Hell, maybe we will. Like I talked about how I gave all the rules of body geometry to AI and was like, had them programmed. Did I tell you about that?
No. Oh yeah. I think yeah.
So body geometry it's just a set of rules. That's all of like one of our best programming methodologies is a set of rules, like shit ton of rules. When I wrote all the rules out, it was 9 pages in a Google Doc. So I gave all these rules to ChatGPT and had it program workouts, and it programmed the workouts perfectly. And so like, yeah, could I only program with AI now and be like, hey, AI powered workouts at Garage Gym Athlete? We sell more memberships, that's for sure. And again, I'm not saying we won't. Like, hey, I'm not. It'd be true, but like that's kind of what a lot of people are doing, right? Is like they're working AI into some degree, but it's not actually getting us to where I think that we're headed. And so I think that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, I went through one of these AI coach sites that says that they'll make one for you, because I was curious about it, and they give you a questionnaire to answer first, and it was like 10 minutes long. There was a bunch of questions to it, but I guarantee, and like how that one works and how we could make one works, it would just like each level of questioning, it would equate to a certain amount of values of like whatever your goals are, and then we would just assign those to training blocks of whatever we want, and then it would spit out, okay, those are your blocks. This is what you said you wanted this, and that's going to equate for X amount of your goal. What that means this is your major, this is your minor, and here's the fill-ins.
Yeah. I think if we can give it the rules to follow, it can be really good. And I think that's where AI is currently limited, but also like good. It's a good thing. and I've messed around with AI a lot. I use AI quite a bit just because it makes some tasks in my job easier, quicker. And I think there are a lot of pros to it, but I'm always testing it and seeing what it knows, like especially like in the fitness industry. Like I turned on ChatGPT the other day. You can turn it on your phone just to be in like audio mode, like so you can have a conversation with ChatGPT. And I was like, okay, ChatGPT, I am an advanced strength and conditioning coach. I want you to quiz me on like anything you think I should know to determine whether or not I'm actually an advanced strength and conditioning coach. And then so it put together like a little quiz. It like asked me is like, okay, this question. I'd give an answer, and then he AI would come back with like, yeah, good job, whatever. And then the questions slowly got more advanced, and I was becoming more impressed with the questions that they were asking, because at first I was like, these things, you're going to ask really stupid questions, but they kind of started off stupid, but they became more and more challenging, and not even challenging, like more nuanced. It wasn't like they were programming specific questions to like a person, and then it wouldn't be like A, B, C, or D. It'd be like, walk us through your thought process on this. And I would explain how I'd program in that regards. And I only played around with this for like 5 or 10 minutes, but I thought it was pretty interesting because I wanted to see, by it testing me, how smart it was. Like what kind of questions do you even know to ask me if I say I'm this thing? So it's pretty cool. But all that to say, we're in a weird spot with AI where it's more of like, it's a helpful tool. It's a little bit gimmicky, but like, I think it's going to be a major thing soon, especially in the fitness industry. I don't know how many industries it's going to disrupt. Like, could it break garage gym athletes where no one wants to do that anymore because it's just easy to go get AI programming somewhere else? Like, I don't know. And I'm not concerned about it either way. Like, we'll adapt if we have to, but like, it's an interesting premise. And so, yeah, I think we're headed in a cool direction. I'm interested to see where things go, and it also could be the end of the world. But
yeah, we're always going to get both sides of things. So I'm interested to see what kind of upgrades that happen, especially just like the devices that we use. Just like, oh yeah, that's a really cool feature that I'm going to enjoy using, but it wasn't something that I absolutely needed.
Yeah, cool. You got anything else?
No. All this talk of AI and tech, man, I makes me want to look at a new Garmin, even though mine's fairly new. There's a Phoenix 8, whenever that comes out.
Is that out?
I saw like there's posts on rumors about an 8 coming.
Dude, they like sped up their, not to go on like a huge Garmin tangent, but like I feel like they used to do it like every couple of years, and now it's like they're getting on like the Apple cycle where it's like once a year. I gotta save $1,000 a year for a new watch because I'm gonna buy it.
I was say it was like the Phoenix 5 for like 4 years, and then the 6 came out, and they're like, awesome, the 6 is out, and then the 6 lasted like 2 years, and like, here's the 7. And then
it was 7X, like, and then
there's 7 Pro. Like 1 year later, it's like, oh, here's the 7 Pro. We just put all the good features into all the same thing. And like, holy shit, okay, what's going on now? Yeah, I hope that's not it. At least with these, they don't get outdated. Like people with the 5 still use theirs and like still love it. It still works really fine. You just don't get some of the new fancy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when I get a new Garmin now, it's kind of like getting a new iPhone. It's like, yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's like there's not a lot here. It depends on how big of an upgrade. But if you're going from like, I went from the
like a flashlight.
Yeah, I went from like 7 whatever Phoenix 7 to the Epix Pro, and I was like, oh yeah, the screen looks a little bit better, but it's basically the same. It's like it wasn't a huge change.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll get out of here. If you are interested in AI powered fitness programming, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial. We'd love to have you there. For all of our athletes out there, plugging away, knowing that 12 minutes is never going to cut it. We appreciate you for putting in the work. And that's it for this one. If you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you.